Good evening. This is Aware on the Air, the anti-war, anti-racism effort of Champaign-Urbana. Tonight we're going to do something a little unusual, but we'll start with some comments by our regulars, and they include Stuart Levy on my right and Deb Johnson, my immediate right. And we'll have a musician with us playing later, Josh Spence, and that should come up in about 15 or 20 minutes. I want to start with a note about the outbreak of polio in Pakistan and why that has happened. As you may have heard, as a means of finding Osama bin Laden, the CIA found a doctor in Pakistan who was willing to act as a front, claiming to be carrying out vaccinations in Pakistan. The real aim of the project was to gather DNA from relatives of Osama bin Laden. They had the DNA of his recently deceased sister. And so this doctor or his helpers went around gathering DNA from children in the neighborhood of Abbottabad, where Osama bin Laden was living secretly. And then they were able to get a match eventually, convincing them that Osama bin Laden was actually living in this compound where he was eventually murdered 2 or 3 years ago. The doctor who did this then was prosecuted by the Pakistani government, but the more important consequence was that after this, a lot of people in Pakistan no longer trusted American medical missionaries or people who claimed that they came there to help them stamp out the scourge of polio. A lot of people were refusing to cooperate then with medical missionaries and other people because it was pointed out, quite rightly, that they were or very well could have been a CIA front as they were before. And so there was a lack of vaccination. Pakistan is one of the 3 countries in the world that still has a significant number of cases of polio, and that has shot up recently due to the fact that a lot of people are refusing to have their children vaccinated because they don't trust the medical people anymore, thinking that they might again, I suppose, be working for the CIA. Actually, they were actually spies. So that's one of the consequences of our clever efforts to find and kill Osama bin Laden. There's been the death of a number of people, the number of attacks on policemen who were guarding medical people, and the attacks on the medical people themselves. The death count now, due to this, seems to have been somewhere around 40 to 50, and there's no sign it will stop soon because people there are thinking, apparently, parents, that they can't trust any medical personnel anymore. So that's one of the consequences of our clever operations in Pakistan.
And we hear just this week that the CIA is now promising that it will no longer pose as medical personnel for purposes of espionage, but that's as plausible as any other, and it's, in any case, it's far too late.
Yeah.
The damage is done, and it's far greater than, I don't know. I'll stop with that.
Yeah. The New York Times, May 19th, CIA will not use vaccination programs for spying. A top White House official has pledged that the CIA will no longer use vaccination programs as a cover for spying operations. The agency used the ruse of targeting Osama bin Laden before the U.S. raid that killed him in 2011. Lisa Monaco, President Obama's top counterterrorism advisor wrote to the deans of 33 prominent public health schools last week, saying that the CIA has agreed it will no longer use vaccination programs or workers for intelligence purposes. The agency also agreed not to use genetic materials obtained through such programs. Another story on the same theme. After bin Laden backlash, CIA promises no more fake vaccination programs. Amid a deadly backlash and resurgence of polio in Pakistan, the White House has a promise that the CIA will never again use a vaccination campaign as a tool of spycraft. Quoting, I wanted to inform you that the director of the CIA directed in August 2013 that the agency make no operational use of vaccination programs, which includes vaccination workers. President Obama's top counterterrorism and homeland security advisor, Lisa Monaco, wrote to deans of 12 schools of public health. Yahoo News obtained a copy of the May 16th letter. So the agency aimed to confirm intelligence that by conducting this operation, that bin Laden was at the compound by comparing DNA obtained from children in the city of Abbottabad as part of planning for the high-risk May 2011 raid on Osama bin Laden's compound there. The agency aimed to confirm intelligence that bin Laden was at the compound by comparing DNA obtained from children living there to a sample from the fugitive al-Qaeda chief's late sister, the Guardian newspaper reported in July 2011. Even before those revelations, the Taliban in Pakistan had already opposed Western-backed vaccination programs, claiming that they were secret efforts to sterilize Muslim children. But the CIA's operations helped fuel an armed backlash against immunization workers, reportedly killing 56 people between December 2012 and May 2014. The victims include not only medical workers, but police officers assigned to guard them. So there's the result of our, one of the results of our anti-terrorism, which apparently seemed very clever to some people, but has been highly destructive. Stuart?
Well, let's see. Are you asking for a comment on that, or
Sure,
just for whatever
sure.
I might have?
Yeah.
I guess I've offered what comment I have, except that just to remind us all that, you know, public health depends on trust, and trust is all too easily broken.
Deb?
So.
Well, I know this is about the vaccinations, but you know, there was a lot of talk about how that whole thing on the compound was, you know, it was that the gentleman died previously, and that it was just you know, I don't know if I believe in that whole compound killing, because even after they said they killed him, the body was never. They said they dumped the body in the ocean, and nobody ever saw any proof of his demise. So I don't know. I have my own opinions about that whole
Well, it
thing.
raises the question then, more poignantly than ever, can anything that official sources say be trusted?
Well,
Do you believe them? Do they have any credibility left, whatever? What do you think?
not much.
Oh, well, there's the wonderful line, you know, believe nothing until it's officially denied.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah.
Well, I recently bought an issue of the Wall Street Journal, and it just, you know, article after article was really pumping up America, and everybody else is awful and doing all these awful things. And I'm trying to get through these articles with a straight face, because it's pretty apparent what they want you to believe. And it's, you know, so
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be buying another issue.
Don't you believe in American exceptionalism?
so viewers of Aware on the Air, please don't believe what you're told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
Okay.
from us.
Yeah.
So,
Point two, the Congress will take up the National Defense Authorization Act this week, according to this message. It's a critical moment to weigh in and help rein in wasteful Pentagon spending so we can invest in nation building at home. The House begins debate and votes soon. Write to your representative now to make sure they know where you stand. Here are a few of the things that Congress can do to reshape the Pentagon budget. End the use of the Overseas Contingency Operations Account as a slush fund. Move the OCO into the base budget and make responsible reductions to reflect post-war needs. There's a lot of Pentagon spending that has never been accounted for. Apparently it can't be. Billions have gone into this dark hole, and nobody knows where it is or what happened to it. Point 2, eliminate the F-35 warplane, the most expensive weapon system in human history. It is unaffordable, it is behind schedule and out of line with future national security needs. It is an incredible boondoggle. The thing has never been operational. There's no prospect now that it will ever be needed in the kind of warfare that people foresee in the future, and it's just a complete bust. Finally, stop service contractors from ripping off taxpayers. Service contractor personnel are more expensive than civilian employees who can perform many functions at half the cost to taxpayer. So one reason some say that this goes on is a lot of people are getting a whole lot richer as long as this spending on the wars continue. And of course, there's every prospect that it will continue for years, as I mentioned last week. There's still a monthly check going to the daughter of a Civil War soldier. The Civil War officially ended in 1865, but a century and a half later, because of some complicated family situations, this woman in North Carolina, I believe, is still receiving a check of $70-some every month. And I don't begrudge them that at all. I'm just using this to point out that we're acquiring enormous obligations to those people, and they are being shortchanged according to many still. They're all of the people who are coming back from Iraq, from Afghanistan, and their expenses will continue to mount for decades, for a generation or two. And I'm all for supporting them in every which way we can, but I'm only asking you to understand the consequences, the backlash from, financial backlash from all of these military operations. And that should be an inhibiting factor, I think. This week, for the first time ever, I think, we're going to have a little interlude here. Josh Spence of the Sugar Prophets has shown up, and he's going to have something on one of our favorite themes for us. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself first, John? So Josh, you play with the Sugar Prophets, is that it?
Yes, I have a band called the Sugar Prophets, and then I also play solo or in an acoustic ensemble under the name Jiggy and the Source. And I also busk around town, and I like to play out in public, and seems to invoke dialogue with people, which I enjoy. I'm a former Marine, honorably discharged due to medical reasons, and thankfully I didn't have to participate in any of this debauchery, as it were, state-sponsored. But yeah, I just try to say what I feel and try to spread love, So
That's great. Do it.
anyway, I'm going to do one of my original compositions first. This is called One People. world today. People are losing their minds in the world today. They got us laughing just to keep from crying in the world today. Things ain't what they seem in the world today. They got us chasing imaginary dreams. It's the American dream. Listen, people, what I say. Heed the words I say. We got hard times with unemployment lines. We got politicians controlling our lives with all the red tape and bureaucracy. A bright future's getting hard to see. We get fighting everywhere, all over the world, all over the world, wherever you look. War is not the answer. We get fighting everywhere, all over the world, all over the world. Give peace a chance, I say. Come on, USA, put all your drones away. Stop terrorizing our world today. My dear USA, hear what I say. You got sunlight, energy inside of your soul. You got love yourself so that you can feel hope. I don't care what you see, what you've been told to believe, because there ain't no difference between you and me. You gotta love one another like each one is your brother, no matter your sex, shape, religion, or color. Gotta worry your mind so you can be free. The world is waking up, people starting to see. We are all one people. Yes, we are. We are all one in universal eyes. We are all one people. Yeah, we are all one in universal eyes. Got to believe that you can change what you see just by changing anything. You got to believe that you can change what you see just by changing anything. Please change how you think. They want to keep us divided because they like it when we're fighting. A house divided will fall, and this they rarely understand. So why is it so hard to believe that it's all part of the plan? To spread hate and keep us divided because they know that if we ever united that their days would be numbered. So they keep spreading the lies as it keeps us encumbered. We are all one people. We are all one in universal eyes. We are all one people. Yeah, we are all one in universal eyes. Got to realize that we are all one. You got to believe that you can change what you see just by changing anything. You got to believe that you can change what you see just by changing anything. Please change how you think. In the world today, things ain't what they seem.
Very good, very good. Do you have any upcoming gigs you want to tell us about? And then you can do one more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be this Friday. I'll be over at El Toro on South Neal. Next Friday I'll be at El Toro in Mahomet, and then June 23rd I will be at Boltini's.
Around what time of night, those times?
The El Toro shows are 6 to 9, and the Boltini show is 7:30 to 10:30. So yeah, if you like what you hear, come out and see me. You might find me downtown Champaign-Urbana busking. I play over at the Farmers Market most Saturdays, so you should definitely check that out and come out. There's a lot of great musicians out there, as well as you guys. Which is how I met them. So anyway, find me on Facebook and come see me. I appreciate the critique, dialogue, encouragement. Disagreement, all of it. So,
That's
anyway,
great. Can you do one more for us?
Yes. I was going to do Master of War by Bob Dylan, but I think I'm actually going to do, this is by a guy named Nako. Nako Bear. He's got a band called Nako and Medicine for the People. They spell his name Nahko. And man, he writes stuff that I wish I would have, and inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing. So it goes like this. This is called, oh, you know what? I don't know the name of this one.
It's okay.
Aloha Keakua. Invested in me, be it hard to love my enemies, and all the black bags or the head of the dead and dying. The more I understand about the human race, the less I comprehend about our purpose and place. And if there was a clearer line, the curiosity would satisfy the time-based prophecies that kept me from living. In the moment I am struggling to trust the divinity of all the gods, and what the hell they have planned for us. I cry for the creatures who get left behind, 'cause everything will change in the blink of an eye. And if you wish to survive, you will find the guide inside. I go back and forth every single day. The clarity that comes in a choppy way, and the feelings and the seasons that change, but the galaxies remain. Energy combs the field, body and space, and the angels that are coming from a spiritual ways. The hate that gives me distance from a spiritual place. Tenfold is the matter when the planet are in polar alignment. We're on assignment, bodies on consignment, returning to the circus. And what is the purpose? What is the purpose? And would you believe it? Or would you believe it? If you knew what you were for, and how you became so informed, bodies of info performing such miracles. aloha, kuleana, kuleana, and stay that I wake. I give thanks, each day that I wake. I will praise, and the moment I don't wake up and transcend the holy makeup, I'm on my way to a different place. And the moment I don't wake up and transcend the holy makeup, I'm capable, I'm powerful. I'm not a leader, just a creature, seeing the features of my teacher, where they follow, where they lead, all the serious ways and mental, and I'm into it, changing management. And there are various ways to conquer this monotonous metropolis. My fearlessness is bottomless, my stubbornness is talking shit, and I'm wide awake, and I'm taking names. Where you follow, where you lead, all the serious ways of nature, and I'm into it, changing management. Well, there are various ways to conquer this monotonous metropolis. My fearlessness is bottomless, my stubbornness is talking shit, and I'm wide awake, and I'm taking a name. Do you speak to me like you speak to God? Above the love and understanding between the Father and the Son. Do you believe in the perfectness of where you are? These are my people, these are my children, this is the land that I would die for. Father, He's telling me to patiently spread musical medicine around the world in a hurry, cause there's no time to wait. Gotta wake up the people, time to stand up and say that we know what we are for and how we became so informed. Bodies of info performing such miracles. You are a miracle made up of particles. And in this existence, if we stay persistent, well, we'll make a difference, cause we will have lived it. Aloha, aloha, kea kua, kea kua. Aloha, aloha, kuleana, kuleana. And the moment I don't wake up and transcend the holy makeup, I'm capable, I'm powerful. And the moment I don't wake up and transcend the holy makeup, I'm on my way to a different place.
Very nice.
Thank you. That was Josh Spence. I think he plans to be at the farmers market in downtown Urbana next Saturday morning also.
Not this Saturday.
Oh, not
I won't
this
be there
Saturday.
this Saturday,
Okay.
but
In 2
Saturday
weeks.
following I should be. Yes.
Great, okay. And,
Yeah, and that was NACO and Medicine for the People, so please check him out. He's
Okay.
got way more inspirational material.
That
talking
was
about
excellent.
Universal
Yeah.
oneness, love. Let's forget this fighting stuff.
great, great.
Amen. Into
Divisiveness
that.
is only to separate us, and only through unity can we have complete diversity. So, gotta have it. We're gonna
Terrific.
be united.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
And if you'd like to get in touch with Josh or his group, contact me or Deb here, and we'll try to establish the connection.
We sure will.
Yeah, what do you
Thank you
have
very
for us
much, Josh.
today, Deb?
Okay, I think the name of my piece is Mr. CEO Comes to Washington. But I found Dave Johnson posted this yesterday. I found the real threat to your freedom is not from men hiding in caves in the Middle East wearing turbans. It's from men wearing suits and ties in Washington, D.C. So I just wanted to start off with that. And I'm going to again refer to this wonderful little book that Ron found at the farmer's market called Pieces of Intelligence, the Existential Poetry of Donald Rumsfeld. And I'll just start off with a little poem called Uh-Oh. I can't remember. I might have. Hope I did. If I didn't, I should have. Okay, that was Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense under George W. Bush. So here we go. In 1971, Richard Nixon had this to say about Donald Rumsfeld. He's a ruthless little bastard. You can be sure of that. Rumsfeld may have earned that passing judgment honestly. In the early 60s, he attended seminars at the University of Chicago's economics department and developed a close connection with Milton Friedman, the master of economic shock doctrines. After Rummy was elected into Congress, Friedman took the Republican under his wing and together developed a bold free market policy platform, as well as tutoring him in economic theory. A close bond ensued, and when Friedman lobbied Ronald Reagan to name Rumsfeld as his running mate, mainly because of Rumsfeld's commitment to deregulated markets, Ronald Reagan declined. So Rummy pushed himself into a business career and eventually CEO of an international drug company called Cyril Pharmaceuticals. Using his political connections, he secured approval from the Food and Drug Administration for aspartame, the fancy name for NutraSweet, which actually caused severe health problems in human beings. He then sold Cyril to Monsanto, personally profiting $12 million. This move established him as a corporate power player, landing him seats on the boards of blue-chip firms such as Sears and Kellogg's. And ASEA Brown Boveri, a Swiss engineering giant that gained unwanted attention when it was revealed to have sold nuclear technology to North Korea. Rummy has no memory of that reactor sale. In 1997, he became chairman of the board. Give me a minute here. He became chairman of the board of Gilead Sciences, who registered the patent for Tamiflu, a treatment for many kinds of influenza, a highly contagious avian flu, that the governments would be forced to buy from Gilead for billions of dollars. Incidentally, health warnings were also put on these bottles of Tamiflu, warning of suicide and other mental issues. Gilead Sciences also owned patents on 4 AIDS treatments and spent lots of money blocking distribution of a cheaper generic version in the developing world. Public health activists in the U.S. have pointed out some of Gilead's key medicines were developed by grants funded by taxpayers. Before Mr. Rumsfeld re-entered government, Rumsfeld was convinced he was on to a new hot industry, and he helped fund several private investments specializing in biotechnology and pharmaceuticals, companies that are banking on an apocalyptic future of rampant disease, one in which governments are forced to buy medicines at top dollar. Life-saving products the private sector has under patent. With all of his wheeling and dealing and his love of patents and privatization, Donald Rumsfeld decided to take his new economy philosophy and use it towards a reinvention of warfare for the 21st century, a psychologically spectacle for profit. In 2005, Daniel Gross from Slate wrote, "Homeland Security may have just reached the stage that internet investing hit in 1997. Back then, all you needed to do was put an E in front of your company name and your IPO would rocket. Now you can do the same with, quote, Fortress, unquote." Donald Rumsfeld's reputation among the Joint Chiefs of Staff since taking office was high-handed, secretive, and arrogant. Rummy brushed aside expectations of being a motivated leader and acted like a bloodless hatchet man instead. At the time of his post, he was worth $250 million, and he had and many wondered why he would want to take on this position, the same post he held under President Ford. The reason would soon become apparent. Rumsfeld was convinced that the U.S. Department of Defense needed a makeover. Mr. CEO began restructuring, much like his orchestration in the corporate world. He saw the Army shedding large numbers of troops in favor of a small corps of staffers propped up by cheaper temporary soldiers from the reserves and National Guard. Contractors from companies like Halliburton and Blackwater would perform duties such as high-risk chauffeuring to prisoner interrogation and catering health care. The saved money would go towards the latest satellite and the nanotechnology from the private sector. Speed, agility, and precision must override number of things, mass. The generals became hostile, and the secretary's vision of a hollow military, and many of them thought after 7 months, Rummy's days were numbered. It was then that the secretary called a rare town meeting for Pentagon officials. He opened the meeting with this statement: "The topic today is an adversary that poses a threat, a serious threat, to the security of the United States of America. This adversary is one of the world's last bastions of central planning. It governs by dictating 5-year plans. From a single capital, it attempts to impose its demands from across time zones, continents, oceans, and beyond. With brutal consistency, it stifles free thought and crushes new ideas. It disrupts the defense of the United States and places the lives of men and women in uniform at risk. Today, perhaps this adversary sounds like the former Soviet Union, but this enemy is gone." That's kind of funny. "Our foes are more subtle today. The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy." Rumsfeld have described the Pentagon as a grave threat to America and declared war on the institution where he worked. Saving money wasn't his objective. He had just asked Congress for an 11% increase. Big government will join big business, redistributing funds upward. Less money on staff, more money to private companies. His demands were as follows: 50% staff slash for every department, commercial outsourcing for cleaning, check writing, computer system support, trash pickup, and health care for soldiers. Pentagon staffers griped that the only thing standing in the way of Rumsfeld's bold vision of outsourcing the Army was the small matter of the Constitution, which clearly defined national security as the duty of government, not private companies. Many staffers thought this speech would cost Rummy his job. It did not. The date of this contentious declaration was September 10th, 2001. CNN Evening News that night carried a short story entitled, quote, "Secretary of Defense declares war on the Pentagon bureaucracy." The next day, CNN would report that on an attack on that institution where 125 people, Pentagon employees, were killed and 110 wounded, whom Rummy portrayed the day before as enemies of the state. And I'm just going to close with another wonderful little poem out of this great book that Ron found. And let me just find it real quick. Okay, it's called Observation of the System. It's hard enough just to keep track of the things that are really happening without having to worry about all the things that aren't really happening.
That's wonderful. This kind of Zen-like statement that he keeps making.
This book, I'm telling you, you want a good laugh in bed late at night?
Yeah.
This is your book, okay?
Okay, I was amused by the indirect biblical reference there to Gilead sciences. Yeah, balm in Gilead supposedly in the Bible, but it's been put to a very different use now.
But basically, my whole purpose of this really is to just show how the Bush administration operated and just how just really, it's so shocking. I mean, and I haven't even gotten to Cheney yet. Like, he's next.
Right, right.
But honest to goodness, it's really just amazing.
Yeah, it brings back memories of Milton Friedman and the Chicago boys who did so much to
Yes.
try to convert all the economies that they could touch.
Oh, I know.
to,
And you know what?
Free market.
All the
economics.
information that I just spoke about comes from this great book called The Shock Doctrine, and it's all in there. And it's a wonderful book by Naomi Klein, and it's like my Bible now. I just really refer to this book all the time.
Terrific. Thank you, Deb.
You're welcome.
Stuart.
My pleasure.
Let's see. I have several things. Maybe I'll pick this one first. This is from. It's an article from the Guardian. Racism is far more than old white men using the N-word. And I'd like to bring this up both because it's important and also because it reflects on an issue that stands before the people who sit in these seats every other Monday night, the Urbana City Council, who are considering, among other things, whether the Urbana police should get tasers. So let me start with the article, and then I think the purpose will be clearer. Let's see. He opens, let's hear it from Robert Copeland, the police commissioner of Wolfboro, New Hampshire, population 6,000 and some, sticks to his principles, even if those principles are stuck in a previous century and mired in bigotry. This is the guy you may have heard about recently who was basically caught calling President Obama the N-word. And then when challenged for it, he said, "For this I do not apologize. He meets and exceeds my criteria for such." Such candor is rare nowadays, even if the Fuhrer is not. So there have been a number of kind of parallel issues recently. Cliven Bundy, the rancher who said that it might be better if the Negro should be back in chains, they might be better off as slaves, and Donald Sterling, who owns a basketball team, and so on. There have been a handful of these, but Gary Young, the author, goes on, and yet the magnitude of the response to each incident exemplifies how high the bar is now set for challenging racist behavior and how distorted our understanding has become of what that behavior constitutes. Before there can be outrage, the offending party must be caught red-handed, preferably on tape, using the worst epithets and most egregious insults. He cites, for example, Sterling, the basketball team owner, twice being fined by the Department of Justice for being a racist slumlord. He was deliberately keeping out blacks and Latinos from apartment buildings that he owned. He was caught and fined by the Department of Justice for it, but nobody was challenging him then. That was decades ago. So he goes on. And so the perception on both sides of the Atlantic, this writer is in the UK, the perception takes hold that racism is not a system of discrimination planted by history, nourished by politics, nurtured by economics, in which some groups face endemic disadvantage. Instead, it's about ignorant old people getting caught saying mean things. By privileging these episodes, outrageous as they are, racism is basically reduced to the level of a private, individual indiscretion made public. The scandal becomes not that racism exists, but that anyone would be crass enough to articulate it so brazenly. And now, here's, I think, the key. The reality of modern racism is almost exactly the opposite. It's the institutional marginalization of groups, performed with the utmost discretion and the minimum of fuss by well-mannered and often well-intentioned people working in deeply flawed systems. According to a recent U.S. Department of Education report, black preschoolers, mostly 4-year-olds, are 4 times more likely to be suspended more than once than their white classmates are. According to a 2013 report by Release, a UK group focusing on drugs and drug laws, this is in the UK, black people in England and Wales are far less likely to use drugs than white people, far less likely to use drugs than white people, but 6 times more likely to be stopped and searched for possession of them. And as Michelle Alexander had pointed out in her book, The New Jim Crow, there's a similar process going on here, where she documents comparable rates of drug use across classes and across races in the U.S., but that black people are vastly more likely to be stopped and searched and charged for drug possession and drug use than whites are. In both countries, black people are far more likely to be convicted and to get stiffer sentences and longer jail time. So, racism is a hardy virus that mutates to adapt to the body politic in which it's embedded. You can't wipe it out with a single shot because by the time you've dealt with the last strain, a new one has developed that's resistant to the previous remedies. So, in the light of this, I'd like to mention a couple of anecdotes. One I just heard recently on Latino USA, where they were talking about, so you may have heard, the World Cup, the big soccer tournament, is coming to Brazil. It's a very big deal, and a huge amount of money has been spent on it at the expense of social spending in places where it will be. And there have been big protests over this. And among the protests have been some things called the little strolls in Portuguese, where a bunch of working class people would go to a mall and just sort of walk around. And someone participating in one of these strolls was sort of looking at how the police were reacting to them. And there was a big group of young people who were, peaceably all heading toward one of these strolls. And the police singled out exactly one person to be stopped, and that was the black person. And they stopped him and questioned and searched him. They didn't stop and question and search anybody else. And so the woman making this report asked the police, why they had stopped him. And the police said, well, they're just doing their job. They may well absolutely legitimately see that they were doing their job, that the risk was higher for a black person. I don't know what the police might have thought. The story did not explain it. And neither is it explained why the rates at which black people are tased in the US is far higher than rates for white people. But the consequence of this is that whatever the reason, whether it's some sort of individual racism, it doesn't have to be that. Whatever the mechanism is that that shifts the way that the police and the society in general looks at people based on not what they're doing, but what they look like and where they are, where they live, what bars they frequent, what their skin color is, what language they use. So long as there's disparate policing, there will be disparate treatment. And so as I expect, when black people in Champaign-Urbana are alarmed at the prospect of seeing tasers deployed by the police, and most white people are not so alarmed, okay, thank you. But certainly some are, many are. Let's see. It could well be that it's a matter of police doing their job and using force in places where they feel that they need to use force, but opening up a can of worms of high voltage electric worms.
Well, maybe perhaps
so
some deprogramming needs to go along with that. I mean, for years and years and years and years, white maybe policemen have had this attitude. I mean, maybe, I don't know, it's like a deprogramming needs to happen or something. Like the one black person gets picked out of all these people. It's something that is something that maybe wasn't talked about but always done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you want to use that terminology as racism, but before these tasers come out, I mean, that should definitely be talked about.
Yeah, we've discussed on this program before the difference between racism as individual attitudes and bigotry and discrimination and so on, plus versus the far more destructive institutional or structural or systemic racism that many see. And our view of this has become so superficial. As you say, it's just a matter of a few bigoted old white guys who are saying insulting, degrading things. And that's not the problem at all. I'm afraid that our view of this has become so superficial. Now it's routine in any political debate for each side to accuse the other of racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, and so on. You see it going on all the time.
Well, it is a problem if
Right.
you're on the other side of it.
Sure, sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like if, you have this great guy, owns a basketball team, and most of all his players are, people of color, and then he's going to make a statement that's so horrible that it's just like a bad dream or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
you know?
It is a bad dream, but there are much worse dreams around.
Yes.
I'd like to mention another thing in this context. Let's see. This was an anecdote from after the killing in Champaign by police of Kewan Carrington. 5 minutes?
7.
7 minutes. Okay. After the killing by police in Champaign of Kewan Carrington a few years ago, the city of Champaign organized a sort of community roundtable. So I went to it, as did about 300 other people, and I was sitting at a table where, with about 10 people, there was a representative of the police there. It was just sort of in a mix of people from the community. And one comment I thought was very telling. The policeman said something like, if you're in Savoy and you see a bunch of young people out having a party on the lawn, you don't worry about it. But if you're up in North Champaign and you see a bunch of young people out on the lawn, you know there's going to be trouble. And a black woman who was at the table, who herself lived in North Champaign, agreed with that. She thought it was absolutely right that this was true. And this is the most concerning sort of thing. It's not a matter of blaming the police. It doesn't even have to be a matter of racism. But if we're going to judge the effect on society of things like tasers, we have to take into account how wildly differently the same behavior can be seen
Yes.
by different people in different circumstances, and what the implications for that are for how tasers or armored personnel carriers or what have you will be. So I think that's an even more fruitful avenue to talk about than to try to talk about racism, which people sort of, it sets people's hackles up in a way that the disparate treatment, not specifically by people in power, not specifically by police, but by anybody, how important the effect of disparate treatment can be in making a society succeed or fail.
Yeah. A lot of that is very much invisible to a whole lot of people, and they don't see it because they don't want to see it. Our perception of other people and what they do is, to a large extent, based upon what we expect to see or want to see or afraid we might see. And the psychologists have established this endlessly, that when one person perceives another and what they're doing and what they are trying to do and so on, it varies a great deal based on who the perceiver is. And we can't expunge that entirely. I'm not sure we would want to, except by trying to be a little more systematic, objective, and even scientific in our approaches to these things. So it's not just a matter of my perceptions or yours or what I like or what you don't like and so on. People, to a large extent, I'm afraid, are unable to evaluate their own perceptions and opinions of things. So that's why I like this bumper sticker that says, "Don't believe everything you think." And
That's good.
it's a problem. It's a residue, I think, in part also of identity politics, where people were complaining about, classifying themselves. I'm black, or I'm white, or I'm a woman or whatever, and I should have certain views based upon that personal identification. Can we get over that? I don't know. I think it's a
That should
terrible
be the goal.
mistake. But
That should definitely be the goal.
yeah.
You know.
But the only one that counts for me really is rich and poor. And if we could stick to that, that would be a tremendous advance. But now it's well known, I think, that the quickest, easiest way to split a uprising, a protest group, and so on, is to start telling the blacks that you should have your own thing, or the women that you should be on top and in charge, and so on. And that'll do it quicker than anything else. Because
As
people,
Josh's song was pointing out.
yeah, people fall for that.
They do.
Okay.
They need
Okay.
to be deprogrammed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have something else, Deb?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. Stuart?
I have a couple of articles, but they're probably longer than the time available, so maybe this is a
Well,
good point
right.
to stop.
Can you give us a quick characterization of what each one is about?
Well, let's see. So one is via Tom Dispatch, an article from Pepe Escobar, who's pivoting where in Eurasia. This is one that Karen Aram would have read. The Tom Dispatch opens by comparing focus of investment in the U.S. versus China, where China is focusing dramatically on domestic investment, on a huge new rail network, and all kinds of things, while the U.S. is about to is letting a highway repair fund sort of run into a wall. We're letting our domestic infrastructure run down, while China is not only building theirs up, but building it up in support of an enlarging trade network that would encompass China, Russia, India, potentially a lot of Europe. Let's see. That's one. Another is, why won't Kerry leave Syria alone? This is an article
Boy, that's a mouthful.
John Kerry seems to be on a personal mission to draw the U.S. into an invasion of Syria.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe more about that next week.
Yes. Well, there are plenty of things that are left hanging here. I'm sorry this becomes so incoherent as we try to get into a number of topics and points. But with that, we must go out and
Well, we will have an aware table at the
Yes.
farmers market
Yes.
this Saturday,
Right.
From 8 to noon, and we do a protest first Saturday of every month, where the clock is at Neal and Church from 2 to 4. So we're looking for more people to come out and bring your signs, or we will supply you with one.
Sure.
And join us.
so with that, we must go out. This is Ron Zook for Stuart Levy and Deb Johnson, and bringing you some insights and information, we hope, from the anti-war, anti-racism effort of Champaign-Urbana. And with that, good night.